Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing today? Okay, so I had to wear my Sober AF t-shirt for this video today. I'm very, very excited about this idea, and this is literally an idea that came to me while I was vlogging the other night. So if you watch my vlog, this will probably be of no surprise to you that I'm starting this. Maybe that I'm starting it on this channel, but I think I even talked about that as well. So I am really, really excited about this. Okay, so hi, if you guys do not know me, I am Peter Monn, and I have 7 YouTube channels. I have also been sober since December 17th of 1994. I just celebrated 30 years sober in last December. And I love to talk about addiction and recovery. I'm extremely passionate talking about addiction and recovery. For those of you that do not know, if you do know, then you already know that I'm extremely passionate about talking about addiction and recovery. I am sober by way of a 12-step program, but I also acknowledge and respect all ways to get sober. I just want people to live and have amazing lives and not die of addiction today. So I was talking about, I don't even remember what I was talking about. I was in my vlog the other day. So also I want to say, I'm the person that comes up with 9 million ideas and only probably 2 or 3 of them ever come to fruition. I'm an ideas guy. So I was in my vlog the other day. For those of you that don't know, I have a vlog where I vlog every single day for like an hour to like an hour and 45 minutes. And I just talk about random stuff, shows I'm watching, books I'm reading, memories from the past, recovery, sobriety, grief, relationship issues, all kinds of stuff. So anyway, I was in my vlog the other day and I was talking about recovery memoirs. And like, I think I started in talking about this memoir that my best friend Tanya and I had read a couple years ago. She's sober as well. She's said I can talk about her sobriety as well on my video. She's coming up on her birthday. Next week will be 29 years sober if she should make it. We don't borrow time in recovery, but I'm pretty sure she's going to make it. Anyway, I'm rooting for her. And her birthday, people ask me a lot, do you say happy anniversary? Do you say happy birthday for sobriety birthday? You can say whatever. I say birthday. I say sobriety birthday. But we say belly button birthday. In 12-step programs, what we say is belly button birthday is your birthday, and your sobriety birthday is your sobriety birthday. But people say anniversary as well. You can say anything. It's not, nothing's offensive about that. I'm not offended by any of it. But anyway, I already have her birthday present downstairs. I'm so excited. It has something to do with her sobriety birth date. So anyway, I was in my vlog, and I believe I was talking about, I don't remember really how I started it, but I was talking about this book that Tanya and I read years ago. She actually recommended it to me. I think it's 5 or 6 years old at this point. Maybe 10 years? I don't know. But anyway, the book is called Blackout, Remembering the Things I Drank to Forget. And it is an alcoholic memoir of somebody that got sober. And I think the reason I was talking about it was because for a long time, there weren't really that many great alcoholic and addict recovery memoirs of people that like had gone through it and like come out on the other side and like shared their stories. And for me, if you're in a 12-step program, you know what this means. We give leads in 12-step programs. So there's discussion meetings and then there's speaker meetings. And at a speaker meeting, somebody gets up and they give their lead. And a lead is where they tell their story in a 12-step program. And basically, when you give a lead, a lot of people will tell you there's different ways to do it. But what I've always been taught is that you tell what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And then you qualify, which means you explain why you believe that you're an alcoholic or an addict. But then you share those pieces. What it was like for you, what happened to get you sober, and what it's like now for you in your life. When I give a lead, I usually go through and I talk about like what it was like for me, but I don't share as much of that anymore about like the drug drinking stories in my life back in the day. My focus more today when I share my story is really more about like what life looks like for me today and how recovery has been a design for living for me and how it's gotten me through different things in my life. And then I also kind of go through each step of the 12-step program and I share some personal story of how like something that relates to like step 1 or step 6 or character defects, step 6 and things like that, or making amends like, 8 and 9. If I talk about like making amends, I might share like an example in my lead of like an amends that I made. Sometimes it's a funny story, sometimes it's a tearful story. But memoirs to me are kind of written leads in a way. And I love listening to other people's recovery stories. I love reading books. When I first got sober, I was very much like when I would go to meetings, I'd be like, I don't relate to that. I don't relate to that. I don't relate to that. I was looking for the differences instead of the similarities. And And they tell us to look for the similarities instead of the differences. And so my sponsor at the time, who is a person that guides you through the 12-step program, my sponsor at the time said, you're going to take a notebook with you to every meeting. And anything that person says in their lead, and they write it down, you're going to write it down if you relate to it. Like if they say, I live in Indianapolis, you're going to write down, I live in Indianapolis. Because you're going to look for the similarities instead of differences. Well, that opened me up to really like looking at people and seeing how similar our stories really were. And I fell in love reading recovery memoirs. When I got sober in 1994, there really weren't, and it was December, so this is going into 95, there weren't really that many recovery memoirs. Through the years, myself, my friend Tanya, some of my other sober friends, whenever a book comes out that's like a good recovery memoir, and there's a difference, okay? There's some of them that are just like, I don't know, they just like are not that interesting, they fall short, blah, 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 whatever. But when there's a good one that comes out, I'm like, this is really, really good. Like, we got to read this. Years ago, I read the book Beautiful Boy, years after it came out. Beautiful Boy by David Sheff. And it's been made into a movie. I actually think the book is 100 times better. And I don't always say that about books and movies, but Beautiful Boy is about a dad's enabling of his son and then finally setting boundaries and helping his son get sober from meth addiction. There's other drugs that are mentioned in there as well, but it's mostly that. The book is so powerful, and I can remember when I got done, I listened to it on Audible, and when I got done with it, I called my dad, and I said to my dad, I go, have you read this book, Beautiful Boy? Now, at that point, it had been out like 10 years, I think. And my dad goes, yeah, I read it as soon as it came out. And I said, how did you hear about it? And he goes, what do you mean, how did I hear about it? He goes, I don't know, I read some article in the New York Times or something about it, and I went out and I got it, and I read it right away. And I said, was that how it was? Because it's from a dad's point of view. And I said, was that what it was like for you? Like, and my dad was like, that was exactly what it was like for me. I was afraid every night. I didn't know if you were going to live or die, blah, blah, blah. It was so important for me to read that book and to see my dad's story through somebody else's point of view. And I think that that's really what's so powerful about books in general, but memoirs as well. So, through the years, I've read, you know, A Dry by Augustin Burroughs is one of my all-time favorites. Drinking a Love Story by Catherine Knapp was probably the first memoir that I ever read. I just looked it up. It came out in May of 1997, so I would have been 2.5 years sober when it came out. She sadly passed away years later, but I remember, I think I've only read it once or twice in my life, and it was in early sobriety. When I read it, I can remember it just, like, profoundly impacting my life. Like, damn, like, this book... Like, I can remember her sitting at a bar and talking about, like, the glass that she was drinking in and the legs and the wine glass and the culture of drinking, the culture of alcoholism. And I can remember so relating to that, like, being in love with the idea of drinking, not just the drink. And I'm very much a believer in the fact that I have a romantic relationship with the culture of addiction. That for me, it wasn't just the drugs, it was the chasing of the drugs. It was the preparing of the drugs. It was the hoarding of the drugs, or, you know, the getting money to get the drugs. It was all of that to me. It was the running with the bad boys. It was that lifestyle. It was like that culture I was addicted to just as much as I was the drugs and the alcohol. And so I can remember when I read that book, which her story is very different from mine, but if I remember correctly. And then I read Dry by Augustin Burroughs, which came out years later. And I can remember reading his book, and he went to like this gay treatment program. But the way that his treatment, I love to read treatment memoirs. The way, because sometimes I miss being in treatment. You know what I mean? Like that was, I don't know, probably like the scariest, but also like the safest 34 days of my entire life, 35 days of my entire life. And so when I read memoirs that take me back to that, I love that. I also love to watch documentaries about recovery. Bobby Joe on Amazon Prime is probably my all-time favorite. If you've never seen it, it's fantastic. It's about a woman that lives in Kansas City. She actually got sober 6 months after I did, and she now owns something like 30 or 40 halfway houses. She's put her sobriety to work for service, and it's just incredible, her story. It's called Bobby Joe, and it's on Prime if you haven't seen it. It's unbelievable. I watched it again this year on my sobriety birthday. But anyway, I was talking about all these recovery books, and I was like looking online, and I was like, because the last one that I read, I think, was Blackout, Remembering the Things I Drank to Forget. And I was looking through the books, and I was like, I hadn't read, I mean, there were probably 30 recovery books, and I was like, I haven't read any of these books. I mean, I've heard of some of them. I have, like, Wasted. I have a couple of them that I bought from time to time at, like, half-price books or Barnes & Noble or whatever, or people have given to me, but I haven't read most of them. And it's actually been quite a while since I've read a recovery memoir. And so I was like, I want to start reading recovery memoirs again. And so then I kind of just spit it out. And I go, well, maybe I should do a recovery, like, memoir read-along. And I was like, as soon as I said it, I just knew that people were going to be, like, rolling their eyes, like, oh, here we go again, another idea of Peter's, right? And I was like, here's the thing, okay? Over here, I have Peter's Movie Club, which is coming back. I also have the Shark Movie Club that on the other channel, on my Peter Watches TV channel, that I'm going to put over here starting this summer. So I've got 2 movie clubs. On my Peter Likes Books channel, so I have a booktube channel for those of you that do not know. It's called Peter Likes Books. I have, like, people have been asking me about this recently. I wrote a book in 2014. I read the entire book over there. Don't try to buy it online. It's like, I don't even get any money for it. It's out of print. It's like $800 on Amazon. Don't do it. It's not worth it. But I read the whole book so people could listen to it for free. That's on my booktube channel. I do book hauls over there. I do book reviews. I do all kinds of bookish stuff. It's actually the first channel that I started on YouTube, consistently posting. But I also have several book clubs over there. I have a true crime book club with my friend Mel that's currently on hiatus because we're changing a lot of things with it. But every month we pick a true crime book and then we read it. I also have Peter's book club that I started a couple years ago, I think 4 years ago. It's currently on hiatus too because it's going through some changes. Both of those are coming back in April. But that club, I usually pick like a thriller or a cozy mystery every month. So I have 2 book clubs. And then starting in January, I started a read-along. Now, a read-along is where you just read with me, okay? We just get to, like, if I'm reading a book, I say, we'll read it along, okay? So that's what a read-along is. I started the James Patterson, Alex Cross read-along because I watched the Alex Cross show on Prime, because my friend Tawny Jean told me to. And so I started reading those books because it took me back to early sobriety. Because I would read a lot of the James Patterson books. Like, my friend and I would go to the grocery store. I think I talked about it maybe another video over here. But we would go to the grocery store after a meeting, and I would get, like, the newest James Patterson book, and I would read it. So watching that show made me think of those days. And I was like, I want to go back. And I think I've only read, like, 5 or 6 of the Alex Cross books. I want to go back and read all of them. There's 33 currently out. The 34th one comes out in November. So on my booktube channel, we're also reading, if you want to, this is month 1, okay? Listen, I'm reading, like, I'm on the 2nd book right now, almost done with it in the 3rd book. We're reading 3 books a month, okay? You can get them all done in a couple days, trust me. So it's the James Patterson, Alex Cross read-along. So I've got that on my booktube channel, and I've got the True Crime Book Club, and I've also got Peter's Book Club. So I was like, I think I want to do this somewhere else. And I talk a lot about recovery over here and on my other channel. So I was like, I want to put this on a different channel. So I was like, I'm going to put this read-along on my Peter Does Stuff channel because I talk about, like, mental health over here. I've talked about OCD. I've talked about recovery and things like that. Boo Radley. Things with my life I put over on this channel. So I thought, I think this is where I want to put it. Which I know sounds kind of like, that's kind of a silly decision that you would even have to think about. But I was like, no, I have to figure out where I want to put it. Because, like, it makes the most sense to put it over on the BookTube channel. But I honestly think it'll get the least exposure, and I also think that most people that follow my recovery story follow it on my other channels. I also have so many book projects going over there that it's like I don't want to add one more book project over there. So I was like, I'm going to put it over my Peter Does Stuff channel. But when I got done with the vlog and I mentioned it, like, after I, like, you know, was uploading the vlog and whatever, I got really excited about it. I was like, I want to go back and I want to read some of my favorite memoirs that I don't remember, like, it's been forever since I've read them. And I also want to, like, read new ones. And just pick one a month, right? A lot of people ask me, like, how do I help my sober friend? How do I help my sober, you know, sister or whatever, my person's in addiction, whatever? Well, part of the way is educating yourself. And hearing other people's stories is a really great way to educate yourself. I always learn something when I read somebody else's story or watch somebody's story in a documentary. So welcome to the Recovery Memoir Sober as Fuck read-along, okay? So starting in February, every month, and I'm going to announce the book today, the February's book. Starting in February, every month, okay, we will have one book, one recovery memoir that we read. So by the end of the year, we will read, well, it'll be 12 books because starting in February, we're going to read 2 books, okay? 2 books for the month of February. And so that will catch us up for January, and then we'll read 12 books in the next year, and they will all be recovery-focused books. Now, I don't know. I am committed to doing this through the rest of the year. I might get to the end of the year and be like, whoo, that's enough recovery books. I can't do this anymore. But at least that'll be 12 books, okay? And you can pick and choose. You don't have to read all of them. The books that I will pick will probably be specific to drug and alcohol addiction, okay? There are so many recovery books that have to do with eating disorders and mental health issues and things like that. if I decide to carry the book club on, or the book club, this isn't really a book club, it's just a read-along, past the end of the year, or if we get to a point where like I'm having a hard time picking a book, I might pick one about like, there's some really great ones about like anorexia and bulimia. There's really some great ones about mental health issues and things like that. Recovery from all different kinds of issues. So I might pick one of those just if it's really good. And those are things I like to educate myself on as well. So that brings me to, so what we're doing is every month, okay, in February, there will be 2 books. But after February, like March, April going forward, there will be 1 recovery book a month. It's not a huge commitment. I know some of you are like, okay, I got 3 Alex Cross books to read, 2 recovery books. I know that's 5 books, and you can get 5 books done. All the books I'm going to pick, you can find at the library. You can find them on Amazon. You can find them on Thrift Books. You can find them on Goodreads, Audible. I will make sure of that, okay, that they're easily accessible across the board. So that's what we're going to do, okay? But in February, there will be 2 books. And the reason why I'm doing it is to catch up, number 1. But number 2 is I want to go back and I want to read the 2 books that had the most profound effect on me in my recovery that I remember, but I don't specifically remember everything about it. And those 2 books are Drinking a Love Story by Carolyn Knapp and Dry by Augustin Burroughs. Those 2 books powerfully affected me at the time that I read them. I could tell you about other books. Like when I first got sober, I read The Celestine Prophecy. That book powerfully affected me, but it has nothing to do with recovery. I mean, kind of indirectly, maybe, but not really. So I want to go in here and I want to read you the synopsis for these books. So the way this will work is in February, okay, you can just read these books, one of them, none of them, both of them. You can read them at your leisure, and I will come on here and I will do a review and a reaction. I'll probably share some personal stories about my sobriety, things that brought up in me, memories that brought up in me about each of the books as well. I won't do them together. I'll do each one separately, and I will do reactions over here to the recovery read-along, which I know people are going to be like, well, that would make more sense if you put it on your Peter Likes Books channel. It probably would, but I just want to keep it, since it's recovery, separate from just like, it's recovery memoirs. And I want to do it in a different place, so I'm going to do it over here. Listen, they're my channels. I can do what I want. This is where people are like, you talk about the same things on all channels. They're my channels. I'll talk about what I want to talk about on my channels. Okay, so the first book that we're reading is Drinking a Love Story by Carolyn Knapp, who sadly passed away years later from lung cancer. The paperback is 286 pages. It came out May 12th of 1997. And if you want to hear more about Carolyn Knapp, it talks about her. You can look it up on Goodreads. But let me give you the synopsis. The roots of alcoholism in the life of a brilliant daughter of an upper-class family are explored in the stylistic literary memoir of Drinking by a Massachusetts journalist. Carolyn Knapp describes how the distorted world of her well-to-do parents pushed her toward anorexia and alcoholism. Fittingly, it was literature that saved her. She found inspiration in Pete Hamill's A Drinking Life and sobered up. Her tale is spiced up with the characters she has known along the way. A journalist describes her 20 years as a functioning alcoholic, explaining how she used alcohol to escape personal relationships and how the realities of life until a series of personal crises forced her to confront her problem. So that's Drinking a Love Story, and that is the first one that we're going to read. And the second one that we're going to read is Dry, pulling it up right here, by Augustin Burroughs. I don't even know what year it came out. This is going to be interesting. I think it's like 2004, 2005. Maybe I've been sober like 10 years when it came out. Let's see. Oh, it came out in 2004. Okay, so it is paperback, reprint, 293 pages. Oh, maybe the reprint was 2004. I don't know what year it originally came out. But it is a memoir, and this is what it's about. You may not know it, but you've met Augustin Burroughs. You've seen him on the street, in bars, on the subway, at restaurants. A 20-something guy, he's my age, so nice suit, works in advertising, regular, ordinary. But when the ordinary person had 2 drinks, Augustin was circling the drain by having 12. When the ordinary person went home at midnight, Augustin never went home at all. Loud, distracting ties, automated wake-up calls, and cologne on the tongue could only hide so much for so long. At the request, well, it really wasn't a request, of his employers, Augustin landed in rehab, where he dreams of group therapy with Robert Downey Jr. are immediately dashed by the grim reality of fluorescent lighting and paper hospital slippers, which is kind of my story. But when Augustine is forced to examine himself, something actually starts to click, and that's when he finds himself in the worst trouble of all. Because when his 30 days are up, he has to return to his same drunken Manhattan life and live it sober. What follows is a memoir that's as moving as it is funny, as heartbreaking as it is real. So those are the two books for the recovery memoir read-along. I'm very, very excited about this. You know, I get questions all the time. I share so much about my sobriety. People will say things to me like, how do I learn more about it? How do I help this person? I'd like to know more about it. I love hearing your stories about it. All those things can be answered by reading people's memoirs. So, yeah, let me know if you're going to read along with me. I'm really, really excited about this project. It's a read along. It's a project. You know, all of these different book clubs I start and read alongs I do also just force me to read a little bit more. And reading this year, and I would say the last 6 months, has really, really helped with my self-care, you know, like my mental health and my anxiety as well. So, it's one, even if it's just read one of the books that we talk about over here, it's one book that we're adding to the list, right? So let me know if you're going to participate in the comment section below. No pressure if you don't want to. I totally understand. You can still come over here and hear me talk about the books after we're done reading them. Anyway, I love you guys so much, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.